Friends, I am very happy today to introduce Swami Prabhananda ji to you. The Swami is a trustee of our Ramakrishna order and the secretary of the Ramakrishna Mission Institute of Culture, Kolkata, which is a very prestigious institution in our order. I know Swami nearly 44 years. He is a great scholar and writer. He did a lot of research on Ramakrishna Vivekananda literature and produced some very, very valuable books, both in English and in Bengali. I can tell you briefly some of his works. First, meetings with Sri Ramakrishna, travelings with Sri Ramakrishna, more about Ramakrishna, and his Bengali books, Anandarup Ramakrishna, Amritarup Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna Antolila. You see, Sri Ramakrishna's death account is not properly written. M, the recorder of the gospel, was silent. After Good Friday, I think up to 24th April, there is the entry. After that, Sri Ramakrishna lived up to 16th August, no entry in the gospel. The Swami dug those things and produced 2 volumes, Sri Ramakrishna Antolila. But as many of you know, when I was giving class on Gospel and Great Master, I translated some of his books, gave free translation. He had a great opportunity to go and check M's personal diary from M's grandson and brought very valuable information about Ramakrishna. Swami will speak today. His subject, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Thank you. Swami Prabhananda.
Tattang tavo na janami Ramakrishna tava prabho Jadrishoshi kripa sindhu Tadrishaya namo namo Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lord, I do not know your true nature, whatever it may be, in whatever form you may exist. I know that you are an ocean of bliss. I respectfully bow down to you repeatedly. Peace, peace, peace. Dear and beloved Swami Chetanananda, other Swamis, and dear friends. In fact, I am on a pilgrimage. I had few small assignments regarding conducting of retreats, but primarily I am on a pilgrimage. I wanted to visit the places where the seeds laid by Swami Vivekananda, and it was followed up by some of his brother disciples, were spread and preserved. This is one of the places, and I tell you from the bottom of my heart, Swami Satprakashananda ji, I considered him one of the luminaries of our order. I had great respect for him. I met him only twice at Belur Math when he visited India last. Satprakashananda ji, Swami Satprakashananda ji. I met him only twice when he visited India last. And also I have great love and respect for my young brother Swami Chetanananda for his wonderful contribution to the Vedanta movement. As has already been told that, well, I am also on an educational tour because I have visited a good number of museums and archives and I have learned a lot. I am grateful to all the people, all the Swamis who have helped me. I am also thankful to you that you are here and I can share some of my thoughts on the interesting subject, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. As you all know, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna occupies the center stage of the Vedanta movement, which is popularly known in India as the Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement. Now, about this Gospel, there are some important points, which I would like to place before you. In fact, I would like to speak on the greatness of the Gospel of Ramakrishna. We are all aware of the different tributes that has been showered on this great work. As for example, stenographic exactitude, nowness as described by Isharud, and some others as the historical record of a saint, etc., etc. We are all aware of it. There is a great book, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and there, those who read regularly, they read, the glory of a hymn on the glory of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. There is a beautiful expression, Gita Srayahang Tishtami Me Jyottamang Griham. It means that Gita is something in which I reside. It is one of my very popular residence. This is the literal translation I have made. Likewise, I can tell you, Sri Ramakrishna or the spirit of Sri Ramakrishna is everywhere, but he is very much present in the Gospel. This Gospel is a very popular book. First of all, when it was published in Bengali, it was published in 5 volumes. The first volume was published in the year of 1902 on the birthday of Sri Ramakrishna. So in fact, we have completed only 100 years. And I will tell you afterwards, in brief, the historical growth of this wonderful literature. But this much I want to tell you, when it was published, something wonderful happened. It was serialized in a number of journals. It became so popular, something unusual happened. It was published in as many as 17 journals in and around Kolkata. Sometimes the same article has been published in as many as 4 journals simultaneously. Again, some of the journals reprinted those articles. This is something very unusual in Bengal. Again, when that period of copyright was over, that was over on the 31st of December 1982, and the next day, as many as 6 publishers, they printed their own editions of the Gospel in Bengali. And that day something unusual happened. The newspaper, the most popular newspaper in Bengal is Ananda Bazar. There was a heading, if I translate it literally, it will be something like this: crossing the time limit of copyright, the Gospel is spreading fast like flood water. That day, something unusual happened. There was, long queues, people standing before different booksellers' houses, and there was so much of demand. And to control the crowd, police had to lathi charge. That is something very unusual. So this just shows the popularity of the book. Now, about the title of the book, the original book is in Bengali. Now it is Sri Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita. Earlier, however, he chose the name Sri Sri Ramakrishna Lilamritam. I have seen some prints in some of the Bengali journals. Thereafter, he changed the name into Sri Sri Ramakrishna Kathamritam. I believe that he was inspired by one particular wonderful sloka that we find in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That is in the 31st chapter of the 10th section of Srimad Bhagavatam, which many of you know, Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kohi Viriditam, etc. There you get very clearly the idea which formed the objective of Mahendranath Gupta, known as M, when he composed this wonderful book. Before this, he himself used the term the gospel. He started writing in English first, and some of the articles that he had written first in English, now he gave the title Leaves from the Pages of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And also he added something very interesting expression. He wrote, according to M, a son of the Lord and disciple. This is something very interesting. And the word gospel, it carries two meanings. It means the message as well as the story. As we know, in the case of Bible, the gospel according to St. Matthew, St. Luke, etc., etc. The same idea is here. And the word Kathamritam also, if you take both the meanings, that is in Sanskrit and in Bengali, if you take them together, you find that they mean the message of the master as well as the life story of the master. In addition to this, if you read carefully, you will find there are some wonderful observations made by the author. And sometimes he describes the situation to create that environment or recreate that environment in which he found Sri Ramakrishna before he placed the dialogue that Sri Ramakrishna had with others. Now, if I place before you a brief history, then I think you will be able to appreciate better. First of all, we find that when he met Sri Ramakrishna sometime in the month of March 1882, one Sunday. And as has already been told by Swami Chaitanandaji, that Sri Ramakrishna passed away on the 16th of August 1886. And you will find the records of his meeting with Sri Ramakrishna up to the 24th of April 1886. Now, when he met Sri Ramakrishna, some days after his meeting, he started writing in his diaries about Sri Ramakrishna. And when he was asked during the lifetime of Sri Ramakrishna by Girish Chandra Ghosh, a householder disciple of the master, M said, well, it was for his personal use. He was not going to show it to anyone. And in fact, he was using it for his own spiritual life. He used to, note them down first of all in the night, and thereafter, whenever he could get some time, he used to contemplate on the contents. He used to think about the particular scene in which he found Sri Ramakrishna. And by recreating the scene and contemplating on that, he found great joy. And this is one of the traditional methods, in building spiritual life. And afterwards, he confessed that he had contemplated on every scene more than 100 times before he had written it in the form in which we find it today. So it was for his personal use. But interestingly, in the year of 1892, 6 years after the passing away of the master, a book appeared in Kolkata under the title Paramhansher Ukti, the sayings of the Paramhansa. And Paramahansa was the name by which Sri Ramakrishna was popularly known. It was also mentioned that, it was published by one Satchidananda Gitaratna, and the materials were collected by one Mohindranath Gupta. These are two pseudonyms of Mohindranath Gupta. He did not disclose his own name. So far I know, there were 3 editions. Swami Vivekananda read the first edition, and immediately he wrote him a letter in Bengali. There is a sentence. He wrote, "You have hit Ramakrishna in the right point." Interestingly, few years after that, he felt that he should present the dialogue of Sri Ramakrishna. And he changed the format, and you will be surprised that, to the best of my knowledge, it was Holy Mother who listened to his manuscript, and after some time, Holy Mother wrote a beautiful letter saying that when I heard for the first time from your lips, I felt as if I was listening to the Master. Holy Mother, incidentally, helped him in so many ways. I have written, in fact, a series of articles on this in Bengali, however. Someone should translate it. Had there been no Holy Mother, this gospel would not have been published. This much I can tell you. Thereafter, he started writing in English. And the first installment was published, very interesting. It was published in a popular journal in Kolkata, English journal, The Dawn. It was published in the year of 1897. Also, another installment was published in Brahmavadin, another English journal that was published from Madras. Now, Swami Vivekananda read both of them, and he made very inspiring observations on both of them. On the last occasion, that is in his letter written on the 24th of November 1897 from Dehradun, in that letter he had written, "I am really in a transport when I read them." So being very much encouraged by all this observation, he went on writing, but he was intervened. There were some criticism. Criticism was that Sri Ramakrishna spoke in Bengali. Why the materials were not published in Bengali? That was the criticism. Immediately, he accepted the idea and he started publishing in Bengali. And about the same time, he read out some of his manuscripts before the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, monks as well as lay devotees, in Balaram Bose's house, where every Sunday the devotees used to meet after the formation of the Ramakrishna mission, and they listened to some portions of these manuscripts, and everyone encouraged him. And thereafter, as I have hinted, he went on publishing them. There was a great demand, and it was published in so many Bengali journals. But he was hesitant to publish them in the form of a book. But Swami Trigunatitanandaji, a direct disciple of the Master, who gave his life, as you all know, at San Francisco, he was the editor of the Bengali journal, first Bengali journal, Udbodhan. And he collected all those materials that were already published, and he published the first volume, which I have mentioned. It was published on the birthday of Sri Ramakrishna in the year of 1902. Immediately thereafter, M took upon himself the responsibility of writing them in the form of books or publishing them in the form of books. And we see that it is in 5 volumes. The first volume was published in 1902, the second volume in 1904, third volume in 1908, and the fourth volume in 1910. This was the best creative period of M. Thereafter, he became very busy in reprinting those 4 volumes. He used to do the proofreading himself. Why? He wanted to sell them at a very cheap price so that it is readily available to all kinds of people. And he spent so much of his time that he didn't find time to write other volumes. Though Holy Mother made several remarks saying that there are so much of materials lying with the M, why does he not write some more volumes? In fact, M himself, in his introduction to volume 4, had written that he had desired to write another 3 or 4 volumes, and thereafter he wanted to write an authentic biography of Sri Ramakrishna. Unfortunately, he could not write a biography of Sri Ramakrishna, and also could not write more than 1 volume more. In the year of 1925, he wrote in Bengali a part of the 5th volume, which we now find as the appendix to the 5th volume. And the 5th volume was actually published 2 months and a half after M passed away in 1932. Before that, the first volume of the English translation that M made himself, it was published in 1907. Interestingly, it was published from 2 places, one from Madras Mott, the English publication house in those days, and another from New York by Swami Vedanta. But they are not the same, though the original material was the same. And as you all know, afterwards, Swami Nikhilananda took upon himself the responsibility of translating the entire material in English and published it, which is known as the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Now, another point you should remember, that if you see the total period that has been covered in the Gospel, it is from the 1st of January 1881 to 10th of May 1887. But as I told you, he met Sri Ramakrishna sometime in the month of March 1882. Therefore, the material that he has used for the period, before he met Sri Ramakrishna, he had collected those materials from some authentic persons. He himself was not present. But he verified and also cross-verified, and therefore he took them as authentic and he published them. And the total number of days that he has covered is 181 days. Out of these 181 days, you will find that he covered his own recording, or the paper or the manuscript based on his own experience, is from the period of sometime in the month of March 1882, and he covered up to 24th of April 1886. Now you may ask, why sometime? Unfortunately, the first 7 meetings that he had with Sri Ramakrishna, he did not write the proceedings immediately. He wrote it after several years. As a result of which he was not sure when he met Sri Ramakrishna. But he was so sincere and so truthful, Sometimes he felt that it was perhaps, in the month of February. During his lifetime, he had published 12 editions of the first volume. And after the third volume, he changed from the month of March to February 1882. Thereafter, again he corrected, and he stuck to his viewpoint that he met on a Sunday in the year of 1882. So, this is in brief the background that we should remember. This is something very interesting. Another point I would like to place before you, when the English translation was made, and even today, there is some confusion about the use of the expression woman and gold. Well, I should draw your attention to two things. First of all, M had several women devotees. But whenever, he used to talk with the women devotees, as was the custom of Bengal in those days, M was never present. So gospel you find, dominated by a male. No women practically, except here and there some mention. So before the male devotees, he used to tell, in Bengali, Kamini Kanchan. Literal translation will be women and gold. But before when he talked with the women devotees, as has been recorded, he used to tell Purusha Kanchana, be aware of men and gold. And before the male devotees, he used to tell, be aware of women and gold. Point number 1. But point number 2, Swami Vivekananda was aware of it. He wanted to correct it. He met Max Muller in the year of 1896 at his Oxford residence. And when Max Muller wanted to write a biography and also the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, he wanted materials. Swami Vivekananda wrote a beautiful letter to Swami Ramakrishna Nandaji at Kolkata, asking him to collect the authentic sayings of the Master and translate them and send them directly to Professor Max Muller. In that letter, he said that, but be careful that, you translate in such a way that it does not create any misunderstanding. As, for example, he has said, for the words Kamini and Kanchan, use the words, don't write down woman and gold. Write down, he said, let me read out, very clearly wrote that lust and gold. So it covers both, whether they are men or women. And I am told by authentic persons now that when Swami Nikhilanandaji translated, he followed the instruction of Swami Vivekananda. He wrote lust and gold. Afterwards, however, he was helped by some women devotee as well as some other male devotee also. At the suggestion of that women devotee, she was a powerful lady, it seems. She suggested, why? Why should you not change it? Write the literal meaning, so it will touch our heart. That's why I am told that he used the word woman and gold. However, it has given rise to a lot of misunderstanding. But we all know what great respect he had for women. That is another subject. Now, there is something interesting. Sri Ramakrishna, in the month of August 1882, That means few months after M had come and met Sri Ramakrishna for the first time, he told, exactly it is on the 13th of August 1882, he wrote, Sri Ramakrishna told him, the mind of a yogi is always fixed on God, always absorbed in the self. You can recognize such a man by looking at him. His eyes are half open with an aimless look, like the eyes of the mother bird hatching her eggs. And there is a vacant look in her eyes. Can you bring such a picture for me? Unfortunately, during the lifetime of Sri Ramakrishna, M could not procure such a picture. Thereafter, he got such a picture painted, and I have seen it in his own collections. A colored picture, beautiful picture, and that has been printed by him in all the volumes in the first page. And I was very much impressed. Why I tell you? I feel that it is something like a logo of this book, great book. As you all know, logo is a printed symbol which carries a special message. If you look carefully at that beautiful picture of the mother bird, you find that, well, it represents practically the image of Sri Ramakrishna as has been painted by M. On the very first day in the evening, M watched that Sri Ramakrishna, though he asked certain questions, he was absent-minded. And afterwards, he discovered that in the evening, he used to contemplate on the Divine Mother or something about God, and he was often absent-minded. Not only that, occasionally he would go into deep ecstasis, losing all consciousness about the external world. And if you read from the first page to the last of the Gospel, you find throughout Sri Ramakrishna has been presented as a person whose mind was indrawn partially, and with the remaining part of the mind, he used to interact with the external world. When I read first the life of Sri Chaitanya, another God incarnate, I first of all couldn't understand. Which has been, Sri Ramakrishna himself has repeated the different stages of consciousness in which Sri Ramakrishna used to function or used to live, and they are exactly similar to that of Sri Ramakrishna. I couldn't understand. But when I read carefully, I find, they are exactly similar. Not only that, this beautiful picture, of the bird, mother bird, represents, as it were, that great yogi, that was Sri Ramakrishna, who had his mind indrawn partially, and with the remaining portion of the mind, he was interacting with the world. So I consider it as a logo. It is something very interesting so far I am concerned. Then, I would like to tell you something about the greatness. Why I consider it is a great piece of literature, not only in the field of religion, but in the field of literature as a whole. Why? First of all, as you all know, as you have seen, as I have also mentioned, that it is a wonderful record placing before us some portions of the life story of Sri Ramakrishna and also the message of Sri Ramakrishna. But they have been present in such a way, if you read carefully and contemplate, you feel that Sri Ramakrishna is around you. Sometimes Sri Ramakrishna is talking before you. Sometimes he was singing, sometimes he was dancing, at other times he was in deep samadhi, in deep ecstasy. You feel his living presence. This is something wonderful, which we do not find in the life story of any other incarnation of God. This is something very, very important. Point 2. As I have already hinted, this is a historical record of an incarnation of God. We all know, it is very difficult to understand and appreciate the life of an incarnation of God. Sri Ramakrishna himself, in the Gospel, has mentioned several times how and why it is so difficult to understand the real nature of such a person. But his life as well as his sayings have been recorded carefully and have been presented so satisfactorily that no less a person than Aldous Huxley observed, quote, "Never have the small events of a contemplative's daily life been described with such a wealth of intimate details. Never have the casual and unstudied utterances of a great religious teacher been set down with so minute fidelity." Quote end. This is something wonderful. This is a record, and well documented. And this is something in the entire field of religious literature, something unique. It has hardly any parallel. Third, this gospel, in India, we have some very interesting traditions, particularly among the religious people. If you go to South India, you find Harikatha. Literal meaning of Harikatha is the story of the Lord. Also, in North India, there is an expression called Bhagavat Katha. The same idea, the story of the God. Now, this gospel, if you read carefully, you find that there are so many songs. If you count, you will be surprised to find that, in those few pages, there are records of 182 songs. 182 songs sung by Sri Ramakrishna himself. And also he has referred to another 24 songs. Not only that, there are several hundreds of songs sung by Narendranath alias Swami Vivekananda and few famous singers like Trailokanath Sannal and others. And if you read them, you feel that it is Harikatha. Harikatha means, the tradition of Harikatha is something like this. The narrator goes on telling the story, explaining it. Then some song is sung either by himself or by his companion. Then again it will be further elaborated, and it will be followed up by a song. It creates such an atmosphere. Those of you who have that experience of listening to Bhagavad Katha, Harikatha, you will feel that this gospel also creates such a situation. Particularly for those who are brought up in the Indian tradition, it is something wonderful, marvelous, If you simply go on, reading out and at the same time, if someone sings, it is being done nowadays, You feel that you are hearing to the Harikatha about Sri Ramakrishna. So that is a very valuable material. Point fourth, it has got so much of rich material to study the life of spiritual giants. We hear a lot of things. As for example, I myself, this morning I was telling the Swami and some friends who are sitting at the tea table that, in my young days I read a good number of scriptures, but I could hardly follow what is really meant by samadhi, a very popular concept. deep ecstasy, etc., etc. But when I started reading this gospel, and when I studied them now with all attention, I found it is something wonderful. Most of the points which I could not understand and appreciate, now I think I can understand. And samadhi is of different kinds. Samadhi is a state when one becomes entirely unconscious about the external world, about his own body, about everything else. But he remains fully conscious. He is filled up with the consciousness of God. What is that state? People could not understand. Even when they saw Sri Ramakrishna, he found his face beaming, sometimes tears of joy rolling down his cheeks. But he could not speak out anything. People became suspicious. Some doctor thrust his finger into his ear to make sure that he has no physical consciousness. And so many tests, he had to undergo. And subsequently, when they asked, well, what do you feel like? He tried his best to explain. And also sometimes, he confessed that I tried to tell everything what I feel during Samadhi, but unfortunately, someone holds back my tongue. In fact, if you read carefully the scriptures, you will find that the highest realization cannot be explained through words. And even a great scholar, a great Sanskrit scholar was Ishwarchandra Vidyasagar. Sri Ramakrishna, during his meeting on the 5th of August 1882, he has used a very beautiful expression. And a great scholar like Ishwarchandra Vidyasagar, he said, for the first time I hear, the idea was that highest realization, cannot be expressed through words. It is beyond the reach of the mind. Without mind, we cannot use words, etc. So, you have to express it, indirectly. However, what is Samadhi? What are the different kinds of Samadhi? What are the experiences are like? For the first time, we learn from this gospel. This is a wonderful record. Not only Samadhi, there are few other interesting spiritual growth or records of spiritual growth which are in the gospel. Then, another very interesting point which touches my heart and for which I consider this gospel is great, it is that though Sri Ramakrishna was born and brought up as a Hindu saint, he was brought up as a Hindu. I should not say he was not born as a Hindu saint, no. People afterward discovered that he was a saint, more than a saint. He was in fact God incarnate. But if you read the gospel, you find that it is not meant only for the Hindus. It is meant for everyone. Every traveler who want to reach that highest goal, which is described as self-realization, which is sometimes described as God realization, and through several other names. I can simply refer to few cases, as for example, Father Clooney, a well-known Christian leader here in this country. He wrote 2 articles in our PB, Prabuddha Bharat, English journal. There he has said that after reading the gospel, I had a better understanding of the Christ life. There was a great scholar, Muslim scholar in Bengal, Rizal Korim. I have heard from his lips in Barhampo that after reading the gospel only, I could understand some of the mysteries that, shroud the life of Muhammad. In Calcutta, there is one gentleman, a professor, he is also a Muslim gentleman. He said to me that after reading the gospel only, he could appreciate the life of Muhammad. The same thing is true about persons who belong to other faiths. So it is something wonderful. Still more interesting to me is the fact that this gospel is but a case study of the transformation that a person undergoes in the company of truly holy men like Sri Ramakrishna. Him, as you all perhaps know, that he was a very brilliant scholar. Among all the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, monastic and lay, he was the most brilliant from the standpoint of university records. He was a successful headmaster of a school. And he had so many rich qualities of head and heart. In spite of this, he failed in the struggle of life, so much so that he decided to commit suicide. There's a big story that is not, I have no time, but this much I want to tell you. Immediately thereafter, he met Sri Ramakrishna accidentally. If you read the first page of the Gospel, you will find that one young man took him from garden to garden, and they finally reached the garden of Rashmani, that means the temple garden of Rani Rashmani. And there, these two found that a group of people were crowding in a room. They peeped into the room and found Sri Ramakrishna sitting on his cot and were discoursing before a group of devotees. After listening to Sri Ramakrishna for a few minutes, he felt charmed, etc., etc. And thereafter, the change began in the life of him. And him not only solved the problem of his own life, but also we find that he proved himself to be an evangelist. He was accepted as one of those few who were destined to preach the message of the Master. That is something wonderful. This transformation in the language of him, unfortunately this word has not been translated, omitted in the English Gospel. Maybe that it was perhaps difficult to explain. He himself has said, what was that transformation? He was a householder devotee. He was transformed into an ascetic householder. In his own translation, he has used this word. He was transformed into an ascetic householder. This is not a new concept. In the Indian tradition, it is a very well-known concept, and it has been elaborated in a beautiful book, I think of the 12th century, called Devi Bhagavad. Who is an ascetic householder? Ascetic householder is a person who does every deed, who does his duties, worldly duties, but he does it in an unattached manner, in a detached manner. His ego or his unripe ego, in the language of Sri Ramakrishna, does not get involved. He does everything. He does his worldly duties, but he does it in a way which keeps him safe, which helps him to build up his spiritual life. If you read carefully, the second meeting of him with Sri Ramakrishna, he has elaborated this point, and he has given several beautiful examples. He said that, you need not renounce the family life. You need not go to the forest for realizing God. You can stay with your family, but live like a maid servant in a rich man's house. It is in the Indian context, you have to understand, not from the context of the American society. And he has explained it very carefully. He said that, a maid servant in a rich man's house, you find that she lives, she works hard, and she treats everyone in the family as her own, but she knows in the heart of her heart that her real home is in a village, and she has a small boy. He often thinks of the boy, but he takes care of the son of the rich man, and he treats that boy as her own. But all the time, she is not conscious. She sometimes thinks that he is part and parcel of the family members. But in the heart of her heart, she knows that she really does not belong to this family. In brief, and he has explained it through many other examples. In fact, I found as many as 11 examples that is spread all over the gospel. So he transformed himself. Thereafter, we find that he has been able to tackle the problem of his life satisfactorily. He could live happily with the members of his family. At the same time, he himself was able to raise himself to a higher level in the spiritual life. So this is a very interesting case. I say it is a case study of the transformation of a householder into an ascetic householder. In the history of religious studies, this is a very interesting and important point. And another thing, though, the seventh point that I want to place before you, one day, I think 11 or 12 years back, I suddenly discovered something fascinating. Though Swami Vivekananda himself said that, you are entirely hidden. And he tried hardly to keep himself hidden, So much so that he had used as many as 11 pseudonyms here and there. In spite of this fact, I found that next to Sri Ramakrishna, M was the most important character. He was peeping here and there. He was present almost everywhere. Wherever there was Sri Ramakrishna, there was M. Otherwise, how could he listen to his words and record? And therewith, I found that, when he had some interaction with Sri Ramakrishna, he had to use some name. He used different kinds of pseudonyms. Among them, there are 4 prominent names. In Bengali, it is Bhakta, Master, Moni, Mohini Mohan. In English, it will be Bhakta is a devotee, Master is a school teacher, Moni is a name, Mohini Mohan another name. These are the 4 important aspects of M's life, M's character to be precise. And whenever he has used the name Moni, it means that aspect of M which clearly points out that he was a philosopher, he was a poet, he was not an ordinary man, he was an intellectual, asking questions after questions. Though he himself promised in the beginning that, he would not argue with Sri Ramakrishna. Perhaps he did not argue, but he had so many questions to get solved. And he went on raising questions, He was Moni. When you find that, he was very much interested to realize God in this life, but he does not know how to get it. He was a bhakta, a devotee. And when you find that he was a master, he was a typical school teacher of Bengal of the 19th century. Teachers were very much sincere, they had loving concern for the boys and girls, and they should take care of them. Their principal concern in their life was the good of the boys and girls who were under their care. He was like that, some questions, etc., which you find there when he is presenting himself as master. You will find that this aspect of his life was presented. And Mohini Mohan is the person who found himself defeated in the struggle of life. Sri Ramakrishna used to describe, all people, worldly people, or people who are living in this world into 4 categories. The last category in his word was Baddha Jiva, a person who is tied down by fetters of all kind. He was like that. He did not know for himself how to get out of it. Whenever that aspect dominated in his life or in his words, he used the word Mohini Mohan. And if you put them together, you find there is a wonderful autobiography. I have compared, the different important autobiographies in English. English literature is rich with autobiographies. And if you read the critical studies about autobiographies, I find that this autobiography can fit into any particular definition given by the literary critics. It is a wonderful study, and I was very happy when I discovered it, and I also enjoyed, and I wish you also to enjoy. Next point, it gives us a very clear and authentic record of the Calcutta life of those days, contemporary Calcutta. Sri Ramakrishna met so many great people of that time. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Keshav Chandra Sen, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, etc., etc. Of them, Keshav Chandra Sen was very prominent, so much so. One English daily in the editorial wrote, when Keshav speaks, well, the whole world listens. And he became very famous when he gave a series of lectures in UK. So that Keshav Chandra Sen, used to visit Sri Ramakrishna and used to sit there for hours together. Now, in all those records, you get some intimate picture of Keshav Chandra Sen. Like that also you find intimate picture of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, the famous writer Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, the like of which you don't get elsewhere. So here, about the contemporary persons, also about Calcutta, you find here mention of all those interesting things, whether it is a Octolani monument, or the museum, or a circus. Sri Ramakrishna is everywhere. He was like a child. He was very curious. Or to the zoo, he wanted to see, but unfortunately, he could not see much. Before he had seen something, he used to go into deep ecstasy. He found deeper meaning, and he could not see through everything, But you get a clear picture of contemporary Calcutta, people of Calcutta and things of Calcutta. Next point, is very interesting and important, AM has painted two pictures. A picture where it has been described in the Bengali expression, this word is like dhoka tati. That means a framework of illusion. Those of you who have studied Vedanta, particularly Advaita Vedanta, you know that this word is usually described, as a word of illusion. This is one side of the picture. There is nothing much interesting, apparently interesting, but if you go deep into it, you find there is no real existence. But on the other side, he has painted this world, as Majar Koti, a mention of mirth. And I find that he has given us enough hint how to change our outlook, how to transform our outlook so that the general idea we get that, well, there is happiness, there is unhappiness, there are the dualities, all kinds of dualities in this apparent world. And we suffer so much because of this. If there is some happiness for an hour, there is unhappiness for quite some time. So this mixture is called duality. If you want to go beyond this duality and place yourself firmly in another world, as has been said, as Majar Koti, a mention of mirth, well, here is Sri Ramakrishna to help you. Follow Sri Ramakrishna, follow the instructions that he has given you here and there, and transform yourself so that you can find yourself in a secured place, and you need not be afraid of this world or worldly life, and you can help others too. You can share your happiness and joy with others. And the last and the most important point I should say, this book is a wonderful spiritual guide. Wonderful spiritual guide, It answers practically all your questions, If you see, this time, I conducted a retreat for 2 days. There simply I covered the first 7 meetings of AM with Sri Ramakrishna. And there I pointed out there are specifically 12 commandments that Sri Ramakrishna had given to him. And these have been elaborated in the rest of the gospel. If you read them carefully, you find that there is enough guide to help us to build our spiritual life. Wherever you may be placed, whether you are an advanced soul or you are a beginner, you find that there is regular guidance. Not only this, I tell you, I know some person, they have earmarked the pages in such a way. Whenever, say, I am in some difficulty, I am in grip, I want to refer to the gospel. So he has marked several pages. What would Sri Ramakrishna has got to say? I want to read Sri Ramakrishna at that moment. Someone has insulted me for nothing. I feel very bad. How to get over it? There are pages. There are some persons who have marked those pages and referred to those pages whenever they are in difficulty. So not only spiritual life, in your daily life too, you find that Sri Ramakrishna is here to help you. So this is something wonderful. That's why I say these are some of the points that I wanted to share with you, and I conclude that by saying that this is really a great book. Now, if you read the gospel, as I myself feel, it has opened a window through which I can see a green pasture, indicating hope and also a bright future. And it is for everyone. Anyone, who takes the trouble of studying it and wants to have benefit by studying it will have that experience. And when I look beyond, that green pasture, I find in the horizon, blue horizon, there is something more. I find there is enough indication, of a great future. I find people belonging to different races, speaking different languages, having different faiths. They're all living together in peace and amity. Therefore, I consider this gospel as great. Many thanks for giving me a patient hearing. Many more thanks to my dear Chaitanya Ji Maharaj, who himself is a good scholar. And in fact, I was hesitating to speak these things before him because he is one of the great scholars on the subject. But I am happy that he has given me an opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you. May Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna bless all of us. Namaskar.
Friends, we are really grateful to Revered Swami Prabhananda ji to come to our center. And we are happy that he stayed with us for 2 days. Revered Maharaj, we thank you. Thank you, everybody.